Welcome. Today's post is, Hunchback of Notre Dame Cathedral. Published on July 21, 2023. The Hunchback of Notre Dame is a monster long humiliated by the populace of France. The story climaxes with the hunchback throwing the villain to his death for the one person who showed the monster kindness. I.e., a handler that can weaponize an abuse victim. You aren't likely to find a more apt story to represent the MK system. In effect, this whole story is a guide, one long followed by certain people in this world. Here are the topics we'll be decoding today. You can always find this list in the description below. If you enjoy this video, please press the like button, and subscribe for weekly full-length blog posts, and shorter, more shareable videos. Let's begin. The Hunchback of Notre Dame is a monster long humiliated by the populace of France. The story climaxes with the hunchback throwing the villain to his death for the one person who showed the monster kindness. I.e., a handler that can weaponize an abuse victim. You aren't likely to find a more apt story to represent the MK system. Handler and monster. Notice the name of the actor playing the monster, Laughton, as in someone laughed at. The way MK ops condition a target. March 10, 1831, French Foreign Legion formed. March 16, 1831, France, Hunchback of Notre Dame debut. March 19, 1831, French Foreign Legion restricted to foreigners, message of not MKing own citizens. Setting up MK in foreign lands through the church as a way to covertly attack when necessary. Why at that specific moment in time? November 30, 1831, Rothschild loan agreement signed Vatican Church. March 16, 1831, Hunchback of Notre Dame Cathedral. October 31, 1831, first popular, promoted, version of Frankenstein published. Symbol of funding MK ops. Church networks across the world. Q highlighted this specific loan. An incredible amount of money for the time, and clearly this book was messaging attached to it. The intent. Thus the book has comms about how funding was to be used. Who has the hunchback strings? Esmeralda, named for an emerald she wears. Emerald equals money. Emerald decodes. April 19, 1956, Federal Aid Highway Act introduced, most expensive gov project ever. April 19, 1956, Emerald Ring of Grace Kelly, wedding of the century. One of many emerald comms I go through. The green symbol for money. Global church networks coordinate to find comms-aware parents that sacrifice extra children in exchange for support. October 16, 1978, Pope John Paul II begins. October 16, 1978, Hunchback released Casablanca Records. The kids are conditioned through trauma into become monsters. They become sleepers ready to be activated, and a foreign power wants to hit a target far away. In Hunchback the target is abused by all for being hideous, IRL the ugliness is psychological. Esmeralda shows him kindness, serves him water, and after so much abuse of course he does anything for her, i.e. she becomes his handler. When she blows his whistle he fights for her. Simple enough in origin, though in modern times they might condition children to start fires or any act to attack. With enough abuse most MK subjects get addicted to drugs and become more and more programmable. Subject decides to act and takes the blame rather than handler. It's easy to decode the story as an MK story, but one part one didn't mention is the motivation of Frollo. Frollo lusts for Esmeralda just as Quasimodo does. And given Frollo is the one who adopted Quasimodo in the first place. The story not only fits a template of MK ops, it also fits a template of family takeover. Which is to say, a witch seduces a wealthy man into marriage and MKs their children into killing the father. Now in the story she is only pursued by Frollo, but as I think the story itself is a general use template, having Quasimodo be the son that kills his father may be for those kinds of scenarios. Regardless, the MK use is clear no matter the variant. That version of Hunchback of Notre Dame with Laughton was big budget and famously was the first and only film at the first Cannes Film Festival. World War II began literally the same week. Notice the other film, Tomorrow It's War. Film had a German-American director. Why Notre Dame specifically? I suspect it's because of the Napoleon connection. He crowned himself emperor at Notre Dame. He went against Britain, which given the flow of history put him at odds with Rothschilds. Additionally, his defeat was marked with literature, which I cover here. December 20th, 1812. Grimm's fairy tales first published with Little Red Riding Hood / Hansel and Gretel. -6. December 14th, 1812. Defeat of Napoleon, bloodiest conflict in human history to that point, Grimm, with nearly 1 million dead. At a glance, these two dots don't seem to connect at all outside of the word Grimm, but I have to wonder if the record-breaking numbers had an element of fairy tale to them so as to demotivate the populace. I cover the details in that post of what kind of ops may have turned the tide against him, but the point for here is his tie to Notre Dame gives the place symbolism of uprisings against Rothschild dealt with in brutal fashion. More recently, there's the Notre Dame Cathedral fire, and now that we understand the connection to MK, that may give us some context. Though at a glance it seems likely it was done as a distraction from Yellow Vest protests. Hunchback was requested on Telegram. The destruction of an icon tied to funding MK ops is probably a good thing. I already decoded France's Macron as flipped, but the earliest confirmation I had until now was 2020. Flipped due to court pushes on his owner. This flip was further confirmed with these comms. June 21st, 2020. France asteroid heading to USA. June 21st, 2020. Maxwell hiding in France. I decoded this June 2020 on Twitter, and it acted as a prediction she would soon be arrested. July 2nd, 2020. Maxwell arrested. But now it's looking like the flip happened in 2019. Not necessarily of Macron, but of forces in France strong enough to take control of the situation. This fits with the Macron comms suggesting court pressure is what triggered the flip. Hunchback of Notre Dame is tied to the French Film Festival Cannes as its first film. April 15, 2019. Notre Dame fire. April 15, 2019. Korean president calls for fourth summit with Kim. May 14, 2019. Cannes Film Festival, Parasite, Korean movie with Kim family wins. I believe the point with Hunchback being first at first Cannes, and only film, before World War II was in deployment/activation of sleeper assets as the first strike in the war. Both Cannes and Notre Dame are therefore symbols tied to Hunchback of Notre Dame and the ops behind it. NK is a storage location for MK experiment data based on past decodes. This is likely why it's part of these comms. Destroying Notre Dame same day as the Kim Jong nuclear appeal on April 15 and then the Hunchback Cannes Festival on May 14 where a move starring Kim wins for the first time. It's possible the timing between the two April 15 to May 14 is a symbol of mirroring, surveillance comm. May 14, 2023. Disney live-action Hunchback of Notre Dame in limbo. Live action may represent bringing it public. People are debating how to handle the disturbing subject matter. Speaking of which, the original books had after Esmeralda uses Quasimodo to attack she dies, after reuniting with her long-lost family. This is definitely a calm for faking deaths to avoid the fallout/retribution for setting a psychopath onto one's enemies. January 16, 2019. Hunchback of Notre Dame announced. April 15, 2019. Notre Dame fire. July 26, 2024. France Olympics begins. December 2024. Notre Dame repairs finished. Symbolism that makes sense when contrasted with my other Olympic decodes. September 26, 2020. Biden, I got to the Senate 180 years ago. Plus 180 days equals March 25, 2021. March 25, 2021. Biden, when I came to the U.S. Senate 120 years ago. March 25, 2021. Olympic torch 121-day Japan starting at nuclear disaster site. Plus 120 days equals July 23, 2021. Japan Olympic torch passing ends. July 23, 2021. Joe Biden, way back 150 years ago when I was chairman of the Judiciary Committee. July 23, 2021. Tokyo Olympics start. Plus 150 days. December 19, 2021. Maxwell trial juror deliberations begin. Davos World Economic Forum, cornerstone of international relations, postponed due to COVID. August 8, 2021. Tokyo Olympics end. Plus 180 days equals February 4, 2022. 180 equals flip. February 4, 2022. China Olympics start. Coordinated to two different Olympics. The Olympics symbolizing countries internationally working together. This is how COVID was able to happen globally. The next Olympics is France. Time to the Hunchback of Notre Dame and the Notre Dame repair finishing. I hope this gives us a timetable for when they are going to handle MK subjects in a permanent way globally. That's just a hypothesis for now. I was able to decode timetables of the general cooperation, but it was tough to get specifics. Notice the Fukushima Stadium began at the same time as Chernobyl. Fukushima being famous for the only other event ever to be like Chernobyl. Because they both symbolized the same kinds of things. Began at a nuclear disaster site with no entry. I have to think it was tied to blackmail. Maxwell's trial date arraignment and plea happened the same week the Olympics started. July 14, 2020. Arraignment Maxwell trial, public on 17th. July 23, 2021. Tokyo Olympics begin after nuclear torch handoff run. August 30, 2021. Jury trial date set Maxwell trial. August 8, 2021. Olympics end. The nuclear handoff is the main thing that makes me think about that connection, but it could be coincidence. I know things are going on in regard to global teamwork and investigations. And those tie into Maxwell. I'm optimistic things are moving towards disclosure. December 9, 2022. Notre Dame's uncovered tombs start to reveal their secret. Due to fire, hidden tombs have been unearthed. One thing I should reiterate about Hunchback of Notre Dame. This may actually be the origin of all MK ops. A church network op bankrolled by Rothschild with a network of people singling out a target, Hunchback, and conditioning them into violence. Creating a protector of Notre Dame. A protector that can be called into action through manipulation. The handler acts kindly to them, and as they are desperate for companionship, the target will do anything asked by the handler. The handler may feign distress over being hurt by someone. The Hunchback, having long fantasized about revenge, is given moral license to do that. All of that is built into the story. Even the aftermath on how to get away by faking death. I've also decoded fake deaths tied to the church in France before Hunchback. Joan of Arc equals French church psyop. I've decoded tons of MK stories, and I can't think of any other that so precisely lays out the established MK formula as this one. Establishing a highly funded global network of terrorists built on plausible deniability. It may just be the original guide. The Bank War of the 1830s. I have now established Hunchback of Notre Dame as a likely origin point of mass foreign MK op funding. But it begs a question. Why? What upset the Rothschilds' banks to such an extent they felt compelled to fund evil itself? The answer is as simple as looking at who was president at the time. The president most famous for taking on the banks. In fact, he was the very first president to ever have an assassination attempt. He is even quoted as saying the banks are trying to kill him. What Andrew Jackson wanted was to make the bank an arm of the Treasury. Giving POTUS the power of the bank instead of a foreign power. This is what Donald Trump did. Drain the swamp, origin. Let's go into a specific version. Laughton. The most famous overall version, though the modern Disney ones are more famous now, begins with a disagreement between the villain and the priest of Notre Dame about the printing press. Whether the press should be allowed or not. This is interesting as the story began at the same time as the first successful run of Frankenstein, which itself corresponded to the introduction of the printing press. It may suggest a motive of press control outside the more obvious central bank push. The crystal clear part is that the Hunchback story symbolizes MK Ops. Notice the sequence. The villain Frollo disagrees with the priest about Esmeralda, money symbol. The king then gives her money of a doctor. The very next thing she does is point out the Hunchback to the crowd, leading to the first public humiliation of the Hunchback. Thus she gets paid and begins torturing the Hunchback. The church then houses her during all of this. The church, whose head is clearly close with the king. She becomes his friend later, but it's all one op, and she's the handler. Notice the king is enthusiastic for the public humiliation and tries to keep the villain from stopping it. The crowd proclaims him king of fools, and the masses of people insult him over and over again in bizarre celebration. Symbolism of a network of coordinated abuse to create a monster. The gypsy rushes into the church for sanctuary as she has violated immigration law. A literal foreign alien. By the textbook definition, that is. Possibly a symbolism of using church as an umbrella to get to the location necessary for ops. The same is true after ops as new identities are given. Movie gives instructions on how to communicate with the networks. Go to a church and pray. What is said is communicated and then tasks can be given. What is desired after funding MK Ops? The answer is to remove Frollo. Every interaction Frollo has with the king that gave Esmeralda money and sanctuary is combative. Frollo wants the printing press shut down, but the king wants it expanded. Frollo wants to shut down festivities and the king likes them. Thus, right after Esmeralda is given money in sanctuary and then asked in prayer what she can do for the church, what happens? Frollo approaches Esmeralda with hostility, and she notices the mark of the devil on his hand. The target. The villain may represent Nazi persecuting Jews. He focuses on destroying an evil race. MK Ops may have sometimes been used as a defense when law was held by someone trying to destroy them. Doesn't make it good, but explains how evil could be justified by practitioners. I'm reluctant to decode it that way, but I can't reconcile the sequence with history any other way. It being the film that opened World War II may well have been an activation of sleeper MK Ops as Hitler invaded Poland. Counteract to invasion. You do this equals we do this. The stated original point of the book was to help fund/improve Gothic-style architecture. Which basically means gargoyles. Wanting more of them. Gargoyles play a major role in the books and movies. Protector, symbol of Notre Dame. In the World War II Hunchback movie, he defends the cathedral and kills Frollo after Esmeralda calls for him to attack. He then contemplates why he was not born stone like a gargoyle. The symbol of him as a gargoyle is clear in every iteration. He goes after Esmeralda and she calls for help by whistling in a way that only the Hunchback can hear in the book. And by ringing the bell in the movies. In both cases the Hunchback kills him specifically because Esmeralda calls for it. In most every version Esmeralda has a pet goat, and in the book the goat was taught how to tell time. Pet symbolism is about one party in control over another. The goat telling time may parallel the Hunchback's job as it only demands the ability to ring a bell at a specific time. The Hunchback is unwanted by anyone as a baby and is left at the church. This is the origin point of MK Ops, as they require a parent's awareness and disregard for the child. An interest in profiting from it as well. The people that engage in abuse are either in on it or convinced to take part in the abuse by those that are. But I've covered this movie enough. Let's move on to a related subject. Peru/Inca. Child sacrifice is actually a common subject in the news, but almost always in context of ancient history. Type child sacrifice into Google and most search result ties to Peru. Therefore my working hypothesis is, Peru is a symbol used to define MK ops. Specifically as a way to differentiate MK network ops from other types. Notice many involve mass sacrifices. Symbolism of the network rather than any specific one. I bring this up because of a recent news story. A new outbreak specific to Peru. This could imply MK ops being targeted. Just like with COVID, it allows a quick isolation of specific individuals and keeps the public from looking too closely. Only thing it needs is a distraction. This week we had a sudden outbreak of news stories about nudity. Not one, not two, but 3 news stories tied to upcoming full male nudity. Full, jiggle physics, for men. But that could be me seeing what I expect to see, if I look for patterns. If I look at it more critically, I notice that 2-3 of these stories focus on social media. So whatever is going on is connected to that. I'm not sure what that means, but a Peru connection, while not impossible, I don't have a good reason to assume it's that. The other one being a story about nuclear development, which can translate into exposure of many kinds. When contrasted with social media, especially Twitter post Musk, it could represent using it as a vehicle for disclosure. Something big coming soon. South Park episode, Pandemic, focuses on Peru is sure to give a clue to its symbolism. Peru being the home of monstrous guinea pigs and the Peruvian flute bands that keep them asleep. That spells it out given what guinea pigs already have as a dictionary definition. Guinea pig is literally a definition for a science experiment, which naturally makes it a symbol for MK. Given Peru equals guinea pigs, then that may give part of why the location has that symbolism. This means if we dig into Peru/Incan history, we are likely to find MK comms. July 24, 1911. Machu Picchu discovered Peru most famous Incan site. 17/Q days. July 7, 1911. Fur Seal Agreement between the USA, UK, Russia, and Japan. MK parties coming together in agreement over jurisdiction. Carrie. This connects to another dig I've been working on involving refrigerant leaks. Fridge symbolism is in keeping something preserved. Often tied to blackmail. E.g. Einstein's tie to nuclear bombs through Szilard alongside his collaboration with him in inventing fridges. I'm talking about Thomas Midgley Jr., inventor most famous for dangerous refrigerants. When I contrasted important moments from his life. August 3, 1911. Marriage date by inventor most famous for dangerous refrigerants. Carrie Reynolds. -10. July 24, 1911. Machu Picchu, Peru discovered, directions by 8 years old. Carrie symbolism is the female name most associated with MK, August 3 equals MK hearing date. I've gone over 1976 Carrie White a few times. The first Stephen King villain. May 19, 1977. Smokey and the Bandit, Bandit steals Carrie in White from government, second biggest box office. May 25, 1977. Star Wars, Luke steals Carrie in White from government. Actually, I just noticed another big connection here. September 21, 1963. Leslie Gore, age 17, You Don't Own Me, recorded, Michael Jackson producer. September 21, 1963. Carrie White, age 17, official birthdate. Symbol of independence, as in the exact point of the data transition ops I talk about in all sorts of posts tied to 1977. August 3, 1911. Marriage date by inventor most famous for dangerous refrigerants. Carrie Reynolds. -10. July 24, 1911. Machu Picchu, Peru discovered, directions by 8 years old. Marriage of fridge guy plus MK symbol likely about keeping practices from going public. Carrie plus Reynolds is a symbol tied to tinfoil, which may explain the protocol for handling any public disclosure. As in JFK assassination equals conspiracy. October 30, 1924. Midgley press conference where he inhaled refrigerant to prove it safe. October 25, 1924. Dakin founded the largest air conditioner brand in world. October 31, 1924. Japanese underwater volcano eruption, heat rising equals need what? Not just about MK Ops but companies and new tech. I can further confirm the company connection by looking even closer at the wife. So he married Carrie M. 13, Reynolds, August 1911. At the same time there was a famous actress also named Carrie Reynolds starring in a play unique for having air conditioning. Play was about a wedding to a man named DuPont. DuPont equals fridge company that would soon make many of the first fridges with collab with General Motors, which hired Midgley around this timeframe. 1911 play. 1911 first fridges sold for home use. August 1911. Carrie Reynolds, early noted air-conditioned play. August 1911. Carrie Reynolds' marriage to fridge guy. So yeah, these are clearly markers for what they knew would be an explosive market. Something everyone would soon have. So this guy is clearly a calm. Notice his birthplace Beaver Falls. Beaver being a symbol for female anatomy. Less common today, but common decades ago. Beaver Falls, as in an ability to make someone fall if a beaver dam is dismantled. He is despised in history as refrigerant leaks were said to accelerate global warming. My current theory on this is his system for blackmail was kept by government directly instead of intermediaries as is the more common practice. Allowing easier detonation of plants. When I say his system, I should be clear. Fridges equals new product equals massive increase in money. Agreement is made to let those profiting do so in exchange for services/ops. This is how mainstream media gets on board with promoting any product over another. What is desired? Depends on the side, but legal stuff, surveillance stuff, or blackmail/MK. This is why modern pushes like computers are the same. Comms correlate with blackmail/MK ops because that's what can be funded covertly through the sudden wealth explosion. In both cases funding contributes to territory increases for backers. My hypothesis is at the time the government/military had an ability to activate blackmail at a moment's notice. He died at 55, enfeebled, possible symbol of something not communicated clearly. In 1987, right after Chernobyl, his refrigerant was phased out by the UN. March 6, 09/1966 Painted Black recorded. March 8, 1966, Hunchback of Notre Dame. Black is to define secrecy. Note this specific show, no recordings of production are known to have survived. Symbol of keeping something highly secret. This may correlate with the sub I covered before. Defining what was painted black with ops. March 15, 1966, Hunchback 2, Torture. +2. March 17, 1966, Alvin locates nuclear, on Q Day. April 5, 1966, Hunchback 5, Accusation. +2. April 7, 1966, Alvin retrieves nuclear. This song was used in the Twisted Metal Black game which made up its central theme. Twisted Metal, the name itself is to define the twisting metal that comes from car crashes. Cars driven by lunatics equals MK symbolism. December 5, 2001, South Park, Kenny dies. December 7, 2001, Twisted Metal Black UK. December 10, 2001, UK Nobel, Suppressed Histories. Kenny equals poor delinquent from South Park that dies every episode equals child sacrifice. Dying, permanently. Maybe nothing or a trail I'll pick up later to an answer. Lyrics. Begins red door, enter, red in this context is likely defined by second part about girls plus dark thoughts. Next is cars equals driving equals MK. Both never to come back. 1 equals sex crimes. 2 equals MK crimes. Both. Leads to I'll fade away and not have to face the facts. Okay. This post was supposed to be focused on Hunchback of Notre Dame, but these decodes tend to get hijacked as I dig into connections which lead to other connections until I burn out and stop. There are a few Twitter threads up right now that will eventually become posts. The longest and most important of which is this one about Guinness records. The posts are better here as I edit and rearrange for clarity here, so it's better to wait for the post, but if you want to read it as quick as possible you can on Twitter. I did want to write a conclusion on this Hunchback topic, but what else can be said? Look at the expressions. It's an MK story, possibly the original one, but I'm sure the practices predated putting it to paper. Telegram chat. Join the Decoding Telegram group. This has been Hunchback of Notre Dame Cathedral.